I don't think it's crazy to say that all eyes are on Tennessee this week as they start their run in the SEC tournament. The defending champions might need a repeat or at least be knocking on the door if they want to start their run to Omaha at home. And of course, joining the show for our postseason coverage is Redmond Walsh,
former Tennessee pitcher. I don't feel like you need any introduction, but you are one of the best closers to wear the orange and white, and I think that always deserves a little shout out.
No, it's fun, and it's a lot of situations. You got a lot of good people around. You got a lot of good coaching, and anytime you get to play with great players, it helps out a lot.
So do you think it's fair to say that the pressure feels different for this team heading into the tournament?
I do. I think this team knows, like I said, I think it's one of the most talented teams to come through here when you look top to bottom. I mean, you have when you look at it through the country for draft purposes, I think the Vols lead in top 100 prospects. So to say the talent's not there, it would be an understatement. I mean, you got 7 guys that are going to be top 100 picks, and I think it's just the accumulation of, okay, how can we get these pieces to work together? It's like, especially over the last half of the season, it just seems like guys haven't been able to click at the same time. Andrew Fisher has been red hot for the last 3 weeks. Gavin Keelan maybe slowed down a little bit after the hamstring stuff. Guy like Reese Chapman, who started out the year super steady, struggling a little bit at the plate, but these are all guys that are super talented and that will have to kind of work in unison to have success into the year.
When they are in Hoover and they start early on Wednesday, I think 9:30 Central, is a long run in the tournament necessary if they want to try and be a host team for the regionals?
You do. It has to be. I think when I was looking today, some of the polls, they had them 19-21, and it's the top 16 teams.
Yeah.
And strength of schedule, RPI, all this stuff. And then next thing you know, you just got to impress the committee in there. And a long run's what it's going to take, maybe even a championship. But I think when you get to this time of the year, it's never let's win the tournament. It's okay, how can we win on Wednesday? And then after you win on Wednesday, how can we win on Thursday? And so on and so forth. And you got to take it one game at a time, because if you look too far in advance, that's when a team like Wright State, like we had in 2021, comes and kind of knocks you out early on, and you have to make a big comeback. And that's what's so great about it is, especially this year, me and John would talk about it all the time, is this is the first time in SEC history that 16 teams make the tournament. And a team like Missouri, who is 3-27 on the year, has a chance to make a regional because they can win the tournament.
Yeah.
Not a great chance, but an opportunity.
So you're saying there's a chance? Yeah, there is. I guess because the format's different this year too. Like you cannot win your way out of a loser's bracket to get to the title game. How much do you think that maybe changes the perspective of this team, knowing that like they don't get a second chance in Hoover? Like they've got to prove that they've maybe learned a couple of hard lessons against Arkansas and have a deep run and truly start the defense for the defending champs.
I think it's exactly what they need. I think it's one of those things where for some of these guys, it's in the mentality of, hey, this could be my last game wearing this jersey, or this could be my last game of the season. And I think it's great. I think it puts a lot of perspective on people, and also shows character of people where who's going to come when the tough times are coming. And I always think of a guy like Kirby Cannell, or I really think of Xander when I say it, and I love those two guys. But, I mean, Xander is the master of, hey, I'm going to win this elimination game. I'm going to win. And that's kind of what you look for is who's going to, when times are tough, who's going to be the guy to step up.
Where do you think this team maybe needs to take that next step to give them the best chance?
I think it always starts with pitching. I think that's one of those things. We used to have a rule with Frank, 4 or less. If you leave a team 4 runs or less, you're probably going to win the game, especially in college. And rule of thumb, if you look back a couple weekends, at 4 or less is it. So I think a lot of it has to do, I think the starting pitching is going to figure itself out. It's just who's going to pick itself up in the bullpen and be the guy to kind of step up. And when you're bleeding a little bit out there, who's going to stop the damage. And I really think we're going to lean back on Nate Snead. And it drives me crazy because people are giving him such a hard time. And the guy is probably one of the best relievers to ever come through the university. And people forget that just because he's had a little bit of a rough patch there, but every pitcher goes through rough patches, and it's just whether or not they can go get back out there and figure it out. And like I said, that guy is without a doubt one of the best relievers to ever come through.
It's important to make the right decisions, like when to go for it on 4th down, or when to kick the field goal or go for the touchdown. It's also important to make the right insurance decisions too. That's why my office, Trey McAdams State Farm, is here to help you select the right protection at the right price. Our office will make sure you understand your State Farm coverages so you'll know what to expect when the unexpected happens. With Trey McAdams State Farm, it's easy to make the right call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Proud sponsor of the Tennessee Vols.
Speaking of pitchers, Liam Doyle, the SEC Pitcher of the Year. I mean, probably the way the season started for him, you could have seen that coming all year long. But for him to join kind of a small class, at least for the guys in the orange and white, I mean, how impressive has his season been this year?
It's been unbelievable. When you get a guy come out and just dominate a game like he does, there's a difference in going out and getting outs, and there's going out and commanding a game like he does. It's been super impressive in the growth that he's had all year. It's beginning of the year, you kind of say he was a fastball pitcher, but as the game kind of went through the year, I mean, you'd see a lot more of the slider, the changers, just being able to mix pitches and becoming more of that polished pitcher we all wanted to see, and kind of makes you sick as an Ole Miss fan seeing what him and Fisher have done for the Vols this year.
What do you think makes Liam Doyle so special when it comes to like the command with his attitude and how he kind of maybe plays with a batter's mind mentally?
It's one of those things, when you have great stuff, it's great, but when you have, like you said, the mentality and the kind of screw you mentality that he has and the psychopath, but it's like a controlled rage in a way where he's going to come right at you, he's going to be aggressive, but at the same time, it's he's never getting above of who he is. And I think at times, like when you used to watch a guy like Drew Gilbert, especially early on, he'd kind of get out of himself a little bit and a little too crazy.
Yeah.
For Doyle, maybe a time or two this year, but a lot of times, like Ole Miss game was a perfect example. The guy was very composed for a very emotional game, but was still able to let his emotion feed out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could really even look to the Vanderbilt series too. I mean, there's a couple of times he ran off the mound saying his stuff. For you and kind of comparing the two pitchers between the both of you, could you ever imagine yourself talking to batters the way he does?
If I threw 100 miles per hour like he did, I definitely would. Yeah. But no, I think it's just two different people. The way like a guy like Kirby Cannell or me or Xander Seacrest was, we were just going to go out there and get outs. It was a lot different. It was how we attacked hitters, and it worked for us. But that's what it is. We watched a Chase Burns in 2023 kind of struggle early on because maybe he was a little too composed. And when he kind of got that little psychotic like presence to him, he was better because of it. And he kind of pitches that way now. And that's a great thing about college baseball, and it's just figuring out who you are and what's your role and how am I going to have success.
Yeah, psychotic presence. That was a great way to describe that because that's exactly what that is. I might make that like the title for the show. Anyway, so how much do you think this team can maybe take from that mental side that Liam Doyle brings when they do turn their attention to the SEC tournament? And it sounds like from just talking with Vitello throughout the season that confidence really has been a priority number one for this team. So do you think maybe they look to a Liam Doyle or an Andrew Fisher to help them bring that energy, even if they need to manufacture it?
Yeah, I think you have to, or I think it's gonna be a short season. I think it's one of those things when you look at the team itself, top to bottom, bullpen, the talent's undeniable. Coach Elander has done a great job recruiting this team, but it's one of those things. And we were kind of talking about it earlier. When a situation happens like it did at Arkansas, and you get called for a balk that's probably not a balk.
Yeah.
There's been teams in the past that have taken that and turned that around into aggression and momentum and used it to fire the fuel. And you haven't seen that as much as this team. This team's very steady, very composed, and maybe in a way too composed at times when you want to see a little bit more fire out of it.
I guess we'll just still go back to that Vanderbilt series maybe because it's fresh on the mind, but when Andrew Fisher was able to hit that home run and, he's drawing with, all the basemen and then he gets to the dugout saying that this is our house. Is that something that they need moving forward, just kind of that chip on their shoulder?
It is. You have to play with it, and I think that's what that 2014 did last year.
Yeah.
You had guys like Simo and Burke, a bunch of them who had been part of that 2022 team who gets put out by Notre Dame, and then the 2023 team that went through the ringer having to go on the road for postseason and get put out in Omaha again. So they had kind of a little bit of that chip on the shoulder. They'd been around with the Vols long enough to know what it means to be really good and to lose, and what it means to struggle and to lose, and also at the same time to have success and kind of put it all together. So I think to answer your question, it's super important to have some kind of chip in your shoulder, and you got to get it soon and now it's survive in advance.
There's been a lot of criticism for much of the season, and maybe some of it's been warranted and maybe some of it hasn't been warranted when you look maybe to what the team's been able to do at the plate or when you look at the fielding percentages. but they're still a team that hit that 40-win mark, and there's a ton of new faces on this team. How much of that criticism do you think's been warranted this season, and how do they maybe build on that in postseason play?
Yeah, I think if you sign up to wear the Tennessee orange, it's one of those things you're going to get that, especially after the program Vitello's built over the years. I think the expectations for this Tennessee fan base is above and beyond anything that we can even imagine. And I think sometimes as a fan, you have to take a step back, but as a player, you also want to kind of take a step forward, and you don't want to be on Twitter and looking at the criticism and stuff, but you also want to look inside and be like, man, have I been the best version of myself? And I think in a way the criticism is warranted, because I think the talent on the team, I've said it all day, it's unbelievable how good the team is. I mean, you have more guys on the team throwing 100 and that has power stuff and are, like I said, high draft picks, and just them not being able to mesh together on certain weekends, like we saw it this weekend. You were able to see it mesh together on a Thursday where Marcus Phillips pitched out of his mind, and you were able to beat a really good Arkansas team. But then you have 2 days where it's like, okay, why can't we score the guy from second? Why can't we get the guy in from third? And it's one of those things where I get both sides of it. I get the fans' frustration of it, because you want the team to have success because you have the talent out there. But from the other side, it's not like Hunter Ensley's going up to the plate thinking, okay, how can I strike out right here? He's trying to do what he can. And so it's both sides of it. And it's just the struggle of being a Tennessee fan and playing for the Vols is Vitello's done such a great job, and success is something that is almost thought of as it's going to happen. And a lot of times it's a lot harder than people think.
And you spent a few years with the team, I think, what was it, 2018 to 2022?
Yeah.
So you saw a ton of growth, too, because that was, earlier in the start of Vitello's tenure at Tennessee. And your time as a player, is there any resemblance from this team to maybe when you were an active player?
Yeah, I see resemblance in the pitching staff to 2021, where we had a great Friday guy in Chad Dallas who every time we went out would win, and that's kind of how I felt with Liam. And then a guy in Will Heflin who pitched on Saturdays who was super talented and gave us a chance to win on Saturdays like Marcus has. And then a young guy in Blake Tidwell who pitched on Sundays like Tegan has. And I see that resemblance there, and where that team was able to kind of fit it together. We ended up being the number 4 overall seed, but at the same time, maybe not the most talented team. This team might be more talented than it, but that team figured out a way to win all the time, and they love to play for each other. And I think that's what this team has to do is like, hey, how can I be unselfish and play for the guy next to me?
Do you think that'll be the biggest factor for this team moving forward, is finding ways to win? Sometimes it seems they get in their own way because they want that big swing, which reminds me of the 2022 team. Do you think that's the key factor for this team?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think again, social media stuff has hurt this team, because you look back to the 22, the 23, the 24 teams, and all those had those big moments. I mean, I could go through the 22 team had a ton of big swings, and even the 21 team with the Drew Gower walk-off. And 23, you had the Griffin Merritt home runs, and you had the Zane Denon home run in the regional. And then last year, you just put a Christian Moore and Blake Burke highlight up there. You always had these big moments, and like I said, it might be one of a blessing in disguise, because I just haven't seen that big moment this year, and maybe it's up and coming. But again, maybe the big moments, being able to lay down a bunt and move a guy from second to third to get him in the scoring position. So I think every team's identity is different, and this team needs to find it during the postseason. Being hot at the right time is the most important thing in baseball. It doesn't matter kind of where you are in the tournament. If you are playing the best baseball in the months of May and June, you're going to win you a national championship. And that's just how it is. That's the beauty of the game, is you don't necessarily have to have the best team. It's just the best group of guys that are going to play for each other.
So do you think Marcus Phillips' performance on Thursday and how strong and balanced that was gives you confidence that maybe he's peaking at the right time?
I do. He looked confident up there, and I think Vitello and Frank lit a fire underneath him. But He controlled the running game better. He adjusted his timings. The stuff's always been great, but it's just making sure, like, hey, when I get to 0-2, let's put this guy away instead of kind of playing with his food a little bit. And as bad as it sounds, Liam Doyle didn't have his best start, but he was due for a little bit. It's always one of those things.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're gonna have it, let's have it now, and let's kind of get him fired up and refocused to get back into things. And it's one of those things. You get an AJ Russell who's getting more and more healthy. He's looked unbelievable the last 2 weekends, and like I said, just get the bats going a little bit. I think things will go good.
And there was an interesting comment Vitello had after, I think it was when Marcus was done playing, and he said that Josh Elander, the hitting coach, was actually talking to him from the dugout and saying like, oh, that's new, which I guess is interesting when you have your hitting coach talking to